to order. And the first matter on the agenda is to approve the minutes of our last meeting from April 20th. In reviewing them, I did find one correction that needed to be made. It indicates the meeting started in the first paragraph. It states that the meeting started at 4:04 in the afternoon. It actually started sometime after 11. So maybe if someone from MES can correct that. But other than that one correction, I don't know whether anyone else has any other comments, corrections to the minutes.
None for me.
If not, we'll have these approved and go to the next order on our agenda, which is a recommendation that Dr. Glass will be making with regard to the review performance-based compensation recommendations for employees of MES. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Glass.
Thank you. Environmental service employees have done excellent work in operating all facilities efficiently to serve our clients and citizens of Maryland. In addition, they've taken on lots of new opportunities over the last fiscal year, including, as you all know, emergency support for Baltimore City at the Back River Wastewater Treatment Plant. In appreciation for the dedication and hard work of employees, taking into consideration the rising cost of living and to provide wages comparable to entities similar to MES, I recommend the following salary increase for MES employees. I recommend that MES employees receive performance-based compensation increases as outlined. 4.0 score, between the 4.0 and 5.0 score, a 5% increase. Between the 3.5 and 3.99 evaluation on their performance evaluation, a 4% increase. And between 3.0 and 3.49, a 3% increase. Below a 2.99, and under, I recommend no increase in performance-based compensation. That would be performing below barely meeting requirements. So to note, the state of Maryland employees will receive a 3% COLA on July 1st, 2022, plus a regular increment or step in the FY 2023, which averages a 1.87%. I also participate on Northeast Waste Management Disposal Authority, and there was an extensive review of counties sit on that, county directors of the Department of Public Works sit on that board, and they recommended a 5%, 3% COLA and 2% increment in line with the state. And most counties are doing someplace around 5%. Some county governments are doing approximately 5% increases in the 95 corridor. So with that, that's my recommendation. I'm here to answer any questions. Also, this would be effective, the pay period, July 13th, I missed this line, 2022. And one other thing is this impacts approximately 599 MES employees. It does not include new hires. So the dates for hire for you have to have been an employee you have to be past the 6 months. The gist of it is you have to be off probation. So if you've been hired in the last 6 months and you're not off probation, you do not receive all of the performance-based compensation. You do receive the COLA if you were hired for October. Check that. Mr. Coleman printed it out. I had it on my email. There are stipulations because of when you were hired, who is impacted by the COLA, and I got an email late last night. But employees hired between October 1st and March 31st of 2022 will receive the 3% COLA upon completion of their probation by policy and acts in the past. So, and with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Oh, that's a recommendation, excuse me, that's a recommendation.
I'd like to ask a question about the chief and the deputy chief here. One of you's got to know this. Could you tell me what the criteria are for 2.99 versus 3.0? And
What is-
some more other things that go on the 0.5.
3 is, let me think off the top of my head, 3 is, you, I don't have the thing in front of me, but you're doing okay. You're not necessarily meeting all, because I think 4 is meets expectations and 5 is exceeds expectations. And 3 is, you're doing okay, but not, and you get less than 3 if you're just not meeting. I mean, there's a criteria there's several different criteria.
And who is the one who says?
Oh,
whether
thank you.
are
Here we go.
Yeah.
3 is meets most expectations.
Most
Most expectations.
But there's
yes.
nothing that specifically says this, and that, right?
Right.
Okay.
It says met expectations in most essential areas of responsibility, but not always. Most annual goals were met. Whereas in 2 is just inconsistent, excessive direction and follow-up are needed. So you don't, if you don't even get a 3, you're not meeting expectations in your essential areas.
And when you got 5, that means
You're walking on water pretty
Walking
much.
on the water.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good place to be doing, walking on water. Now that I think of it, which I shouldn't have in the first place, but who is the one who decides the 2.9 versus 5? How does that run?
The
Is it-
supervisor is of the employee is the person that does the scoring. If somebody gets less than 3, then they have to go to HR. And it has to be reviewed by human resources.
And you get your 5 or your 5, what do they have to do? Realistically, does that have to come to you to say, hey, that's a lot of money?
Yeah.
What are they?
No, it doesn't, although we do look at the group and see, because if there's an excessive number of 5s, then it's like, wait, you guys are being way too easy on people. You've got good employees, but you can't have that many that are walking on water.
The reason I ask is that, as you probably know, or you may know, I was in the military for 8 years altogether. And we have something called an OER, officer. I forgot what they call it, but it's what you got from your boss.
Okay.
And you had 2 levels to go up before they went out. And the problem was that at that time, this is right around 1968, 70, this was the 7th time that the OER had been redone. And it went on and on and on, everything. And finally, what the problem was, everybody was getting a 95. And you probably know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I'm asking, what kind of, now it's been changed a good bit. A lot of people I know who have these things. And now it's very, very difficult for the very high rating officers to give these people, something close to 95 or whatever. So, that's why I sort of asked you about how this operates, to see if you had that one up or 2 ups.
Well, so out of 599 eligible, there's 563 evaluations that are completed so far and have been reviewed by the management chain. 447 are between 4.0 and 5.0.
Well, that's the highest.
Okay, that's 4.05. Yeah, so
That sounds, great.
89 are between they're in that 3.5 to 3.99 range.
Okay.
And then there's a very few that are below 2.99, 2 by MES.
So it's not, 95% for 5 people.
Right. No.
Okay, that's all I had to.
So those are the numbers you asked for last night. Those are some.
I have 2. I'm sorry, say that again, Dr. Glass?
I was just saying those numbers I was reciting were the numbers you requested last night.
Yes, thank you. I do have 2 questions. You mentioned that the state COLA is 3% with a step of 1.87. How does that so essentially, I'm not sure how that step process works in the state government, but it seems like what you're saying is that the state government employees are getting close to 5%. They're getting,
4.87%, yes.
is that, okay. And then lastly, and most importantly, because the salary guidelines and policies that we have also require that any increase be based on having available and sufficient funds. I assume that Mr. Patel has blessed this and that we do have funding. I think he mentioned that at our last meeting, but
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure and confirm that.
That is confirmed. He
Okay.
worked intimately on all of this.
Okay. And then lastly, I guess, you mentioned that there were 447 employees at this point that have scored between 4 and 5. So that's a pretty high number of employees. Has that been reviewed overall by upper management to make sure that you don't have an overabundance of people getting the maximum increase?
So I can say I've seen one whole group. This isn't necessarily complete as far as the final evaluation, but I've only reviewed one group so far, and it showed a nice disparity or disbursement of the award or of the performance-based compensation. The other 3 I have not reviewed yet. So, but we will review before the end of the pay period of the next pay period.
Okay, good. As long as someone else is reviewing it, good. I have no further questions. Does anybody else have any comments?
No, I think
If
it's
not,
a good program.
I'd entertain. I'm sorry, what did you say?
I think it's a good program, and you know, you can't have the top of the line look at every single one that everybody gets every year. You'd be doing it for, you know, that'd be the only thing you'd be doing for a year and a half. Yeah. So I think there has to be a level somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other comments or questions, I'd entertain a motion that the HR.
Mr. Tanner has a question.
Mr. Tanner, I'm sorry.
So now you got me as an old man. I've got the question. It must have been really important. I don't think it's something that would stop me from voting. So.
Oh, there was no question? Oh, okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion then for the HR committee to recommend to the board its approval of the employee performance-based compensation recommendations as set forth by Dr. Glass. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And with that, the motion will pass. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda relates to a process that will be used to review the executive director's performance as well as, well, primarily his performance. And that process was set forth in the salary recommendations and at a prior meeting. Let me see where we are in this. Yeah, at a at our February 24 meeting of this year, the board approved the executive director's evaluation survey form, and that included a process for conducting the review. What we need to do at this point is take that process and put it into a timeline. So Pam, if you can pull up the other slide that has the dates and the timeline to that. If not, I can verbally review it.
That slide is in the full packet. I'm not sure I can get to that. Oh, thanks.
I know I had it earlier.
Where you
I've got the references here. What we're going to be needing will be the general approval for 4 deadlines in order to accomplish the process that the board approved back in February. And that first item will be sometime in July, coming soon, next month. We need to distribute the survey form to all of the board members for their completion. Following that, in August, and probably early August, the board members will have to have an executive meeting. It'll be closed, and it will be only the board members to discuss the evaluation results and recommendations. And at the end of August, August 25, will be our next board meeting in August. And at that time, we're hoping that we'll be able to formally approve the evaluation. And at that time, consider a salary recommendation for the executive director. I don't know whether anyone has any concern or problem with these timelines. I don't believe we need a vote from the board, so this is just really more informative at this point. Judge Smolkin, you don't think, I don't think we need a motion of any kind on this. This is just setting forth our deadlines for accomplishing the evaluation process.
I don't think it's a matter that undertakes that measure. No, there's one quick thing, and I've got to say, when I looked at the overall organization, et cetera, this is just maybe sounds a little bit ridiculous, but when I looked at IMPR, I thought of improviser, and it's not. It says instead of IMPR, improvement is just sounds a lot better than IMPR, improvement, because at first you follow.
It's on the form that was abbreviated.
If there's some way instead of imprimatur, we don't want imprimatur.
Well, we can work on revising that schedule.
Yeah,
before it goes.
so you just say, improvement here, something like that. Squeeze it down or something, at least where we can see it. That's all.
Judge Smolkin.
It says don't know, maybe it would be some other type thing instead of don't know about N/A non. Yeah, because I don't know, it's like, I'm not sure, You say NA, not applicable, everybody knows what that is, even without Latin. Is that okay with you all?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right.
Judge Smolkin. Oops,
Yeah.
sorry. No, I just wanted to ask you another question. I didn't mean to interrupt you if you need to finish. Okay. The other part of the process will be for you to appoint a smaller group. I mean, the evaluation itself will be conducted by all of the board members, but we also need to set up a smaller group if needed for any other decisions that might need to be made. And I don't know if you have any recommendations in that regard, but I thought it would be helpful to include the chairs of the various committees and people who've had the most substantive dealings with the executive director. And so I was proposing that smaller committee be composed of yourself, Shelley Heller, Secretary Neal, and myself, but I don't know whether you have any other suggestions. And just so that you know, I'd be more than happy to do the legwork with regard to distributing the evaluation and just administering the process.
Just go as an ad hoc process. We don't have to have an
Ad hoc.
entire process for this.
You don't need to have an entire group,
Right.
or the full board just to manage the process, which is really just making sure that the forms get sent out to the board members and then collected and kept in a confidential manner. So I think the idea behind this particular provision in the this executive director evaluation process was that it would be managed exclusively by board members and that staff would not be involved in distributing or collecting the forms once they're prepared.
And it doesn't need general, what we call it, not necessarily, or not requiring that it run through regular channels.
Yeah, the two things. One is I would recommend that whoever is going to be appointed to that committee, that the board, the full board, vote on the membership of that committee. But that committee does not function as an entity subject to the Open Meetings Act because the purpose is to implement an administrative function.
But we'll just know who did what,
Yes.
when and where.
So, by the board formally designating which individuals, which members will be on that committee, then there'll be some accountability for those individuals.
And one of the things I'm thinking about is, I just thought about it today because I almost got on among the people that should be traveling at perhaps 80, and they're around 190 when you come. So if we're trying to have a number of people get together, you know, we've got, if we just have it tied to our, you know, last Thursday in a particular area, that means we're having people coming in, who knows, from all over. And I think maybe we ought to have simple, just Zoom when we do this kind of thing, rather than have everybody come in for something like that.
Yes, that the committee could decide that that would be the way they want to meet and discuss issues.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Ms. Lynn?
Yes, it is. And I'd be happy to set up an independent Zoom call through my office just to ensure the confidentiality of any discussion.
I think that way, you know, we've got Western Shore, the Eastern Shore, and something in the middle. So it would probably be a lot easier to do these on Zoom. Thank you. Unless anybody has any objections here, just want to, you know, get your car hit several times coming down here, well, then it's fine. We'll all come down. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it.
So Judge Mulligan, at the board meeting later on, how do you want to identify the members of this smaller committee, especially for purposes of just administering or managing the process?
I hadn't thought about that in any way. Anybody got any idea on it? Do you have any idea on it? Or?
I mean, just in the HR committee report, Ms. Flom, if you would, at the end of your report, you know, make a recommendation to the board and then ask for a motion to create the ad hoc committee, that would seem the appropriate time in the agenda. You know.
But with regard to that ad hoc committee, Judge Smolkin, who would you like to be, who would you suggest be on that committee?
Well, I don't want to stick myself into everybody's business. Frankly, I think that maybe has a, you know, one way or the other, people might think that I'm sort of running the whole thing, and I really don't want to do that. So I think it would be whoever is most the individual who runs the two things that we've got. And we don't have to start a new one. So I think it's best to have the person who is the chief of those two ones who decide how to do that. That's my idea. So anybody have any questions in here on that or any comments? In other words, we're not starting a whole new organization.
Right.
And I think that's something we shouldn't do, is to start up another organization. We'll just have, since it's ad hoc, we can make it, go anywhere from butterfly to a rhinoceros. I mean, it's whatever the MES, it's going to happen. So you don't need to have it done that way. I think anyways.
Would it be, and as an ad hoc committee, based on what Mr. Coleman had said, I don't think it's probably not even going to be needed in terms of having the ad hoc members do anything really specific or substantive. But because every board member will have input, but to the extent we need an ad hoc committee,
All you have to do is say that, and it'll be there. So
I would suggest that the members of that ad hoc committee include yourself, Judge Smolkin, Shelley Heller, Secretary Neal, and myself as the HR committee chair. And as the HR committee chair, I'd be more than happy to do the administrative work, such as distributing the surveys, collecting them, summarizing the survey results, and then organizing a meeting to discuss the survey.
that sounds quite reasonable. Anybody here?
And then I'll at least make that recommendation at the meeting later on.
All right, thank you. And we have that.
Is there anything?
Dan, we have
Is there
that
anything?
that
I'm sorry.
particular matter that's.
I think it just came into existence, so I can't redo it. I mean, there's a timeline for the slide for the regular board meeting,
Okay,
but the committee, it'll be in writing, because it'll be part of the minutes.
okay.
Is there anything else that we need to accomplish with regard to the process for conducting the executive director's evaluation and salary recommendations? If not, we've concluded the open session agenda, and we'll next need to go into a closed session in accordance with section 3-305B1 of the general provisions of the Maryland Code annotated. The HR committee proposes in closed session to approve the minutes of a prior closed session of the HR committee and to discuss the performance evaluation and compensation of one or more individuals. Please let me know if anyone has any objection at this time to going into a closed session. And if any member of the viewing public has any objection, please submit your objection via email to MES. Hearing no objections from the committee members, I will ask for a motion to enter into closed session at this time.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
thank you, Mr. Channer. At this time, we'll adjourn the open meeting and ask MES staff to transition us